Yeah, okay, so now we made a PHP code that can connect to our database. As a next step, as a next example, we are going to execute one SQL statement. So we have studied many different types of SQL statements that include create table, update, insert, and delete statements. In the first example, we want to execute create table statements. Previously, we have created tables in PHP MyAdmin web environment. Am I right? So first, I want to show you how to make create table statements, and we will test it in PHP MyAdmin as we have done before. By doing this, we can confirm our SQL statements does not have any error, and we can embed these SQL statements inside the PHP code. So let's log into PHP MyAdmin. To do this in your web browser, you can check https://valhalla-sourcevery.edu and here PHP MyAdmin, enter, and the login screen, and let me type username and type password, your password. So let me see. Okay, so now I logged in, and you may have several tables. I just deleted it to make it clean. So check your database here on the left side, and go to SQL here on top, SQL tab. I will type a create table statements, and the table name will be persons. So here, let me write down create table. So table, and the name is persons, but we want to run this table, create table statements later in PHP. So this is just for testing where there are any error. So let me add one suffix like t, that means testing. So create table persons underbar t, and after then you have to add parenthesis, and let's close parenthesis, and we are going to list up column names. So person ID, the first column, and let's say first name, second column, and the last name, third column, and let's say ag as the last column. Now each column has a data type. So varchar, maximum length 15. So person ID, let's use integer as a data type, and we have some more constraints. So like it is primary key and also auto increment. So let me say integer, and I will explain about auto increment later, but let's say auto increment. First name data type is varchar, and the 15 is maximum. Last name, again varchar, so variable character, maximum length is 15. Ag, this is integer, and we have primary key, so primary key constraints, and what is primary key in our case? This is person ID. So all column name is case sensitive, so please make sure you are using this same column name. So we will try to create a table called persons underbar t. Underbar t, why we add it? Because it's a testing. So we want to make sure your statements does not have any syntax error. So let's try these statements. So let me close with the semicolon, and I'm going to click go. So let's click go these statements. Luckily, I do not have any error, so MySQL returned and there is no error message, and we can see on the left side there is a persons underbar T table. Did you get this table? Okay, so if you successfully run your create table statements, we are going to use this in PHP code. So let's copy your create table statements here with no error, and let's temporarily save it in WordPad or Notepad. So let me open WordPad in my case. So let's me open WordPad, and in WordPad let me copy and paste our create table statements here. Okay, so do not close your WordPad, and now we tested this create table statement. So let me minimize the window and let's go back to WinSP. Okay, so now in WinSP, we will create a new file, and this PHP code, if you execute it, is going to create a table in your database. So it's not from phpMyAdmin, but it will be from your PHP file. So let's see. Right click, let's click new, and let's create a file in the same directory, so M4T4 directory. And let's name it as create table.php. Okay, so in this new file, first to run your PHP, the 3 steps you may remember: connection, execution, and close. So first, let's create a PHP block. So here PHP, and we need to make a connection. So make a connection. How to make a connection? In this case, we already made a connection using connection.php file. Instead of writing down all those connection relevant codes, can you reuse it? Actually, that's a very good question. In PHP, you can include any existing PHP code using a function called include function. So we are going to include connection.php file here. So let me type a command. So include connection.php to make a database connection instead of retyping everything. So the function is called include function. So the function is include function. And what is the parameter? The parameter is the file path. In our case, connection.php is in the same folder. You can just simply type without any typo connection.php file name here. If you do this, actually all the code means in previous connection.php, we already have this code. This code is simply added where? In our new file called create table.php. So we include connection.php. If you include it and if you run this code, you already made a connection. By the way, before I forget, let me close the PHP block. Okay, now I made a connection. What's the second step? We have to execute a SQL statements. Particularly in this example, we want to create a table. So do we have create table statements? Yes, we do. Here in your WordPad, let's go to your WordPad. And here is the create table statement you have tested. So let's copy here. And then we are going to paste this create table statements right there. So create table, persons, and the column name, and this is complete. But we cannot create the same tables 2 times, and it's not testing. We want to create a real persons table, so let's modify the table name by deleting this underbar T. So this is tested create table statements. So statement is text, so let's enclose them with double quote mark, and then we want to save it in a variable, so let's name it as SQL, and we are going to assign this. If we assign this, this is one PHP statement, so let's close it with semicolon, so don't forget it. So now we are ready. So this is SQL statements we want to run. How can we execute? Now you have to call the function. So to execute any SQL statements, the function, new function you need to call is called mysql I underbar query function. So here we will run mysql I underbar query, so query, and you have to again provide some parameters. 2 parameters you need to provide. Definitely you have to provide your SQL statements, but one more required parameter is current connection. Do you remember in connection.php, after you created a connection, all those connection status is saved in which variable? Although it's not in our code, in connection.php, if you read it one more time, it's saved in con variable. So the first parameter is the link variable. So in our code, it's saved in $con. Second parameter is SQL statements that you want to execute. So far so good? Okay. After you execute this function, the new table will be created in your database based on our current connection. Again, after you call this function, you can check the status by getting the return value. So not just call the function, let's save the result. So let me create a new variable called result, and I will assign the resulting status, result of these functions. Okay, similar to connection, we can check whether your execution was okay. So to do this, let's check the error if there is any problems. So how can we check this error? We can check this error similar to the connection by calling a conditional statement. Okay, so let's use if conditions. So if something happens, we want to do here in this curly brace block. But not just if, in this case, I want to also check else. So if something is true, we want to do the first curly brace. If not, in else block, we will do some others. So what will be the condition in this case? Let's say the execution is successful. So how can you check? You can just check result. So if execution is successful, the result will have some values. It is considered as true. If not, result will have no value or null value. Then logically it's going to be evaluated as false. So this condition indicates the execution was successful. Then what message you want to show? You can say echo table persons has been created successfully. Okay. If it was not successful, we have to show some error message. It is a little bit different from connection.php. So echo, we wanna show error. So let's say here our personalized error messages. So error while creating a table, and then we want to add some more details. So we want to concatenate, and we want to capture the error message. In that case, MySQL, instead of creating error, you can just simply call MySQL, not MySQL, sorry, MySQL I, so MySQL improved, and error function. But in that case, since we already have a connection, one parameter you have to provide, current connection. So based on our current connection, if there is any error, it will be captured by calling MySQL I error function with the current connection as a parameter. Can you understand it? Okay, so this is how to check your error after you execute it. What's the last step after you execute your SQL statements? Yes, you need to close it. So let's close the connection. My job is done, so I want to close the connection. What's the function? MySQL improved, so MySQL I underbar close. So close, and what's the parameter? Current connection. So by calling this function, make sure you free all the computing resources. Okay, so that's it. So let's test it. So let's save it first, and then we are going to test it. So in your web browser, instead of connection.php, what is the file name? Create table.php. It says that create table.php was not found on this server. Oh, I think I made a typo. I hope you do not make the same mistake. But it's good chance to show how to fix it. So create table.php, it does not exist in this server. If you have this kind of error, you may check, go to PHP and WinSP, and you may see, oh, I made a typo. Actually, I named it as create. So instead of a e, so create te. So I made a typo. So create table. So I can fix it. So I fixed it, and then let me go back to browser and let me refresh it. Okay, it says table persons has been created successfully. We can double check it by looking at actual database. So let's double check it by going to phpMyAdmin. So let's go back to phpMyAdmin, and if I reload, now I have a persons table here. This persons table is created by PHP code, not directed from phpMyAdmin. So you can see how PHP application or how PHP program can connect to the database, and how it can execute SQL statements. In this case, create table statements. If you, for example, to get the error message, let me go back to your browser, and I will show you what kind of error message you can get. Here is the web page, and if I rerun, let's see what happened. What happens? Error while creating table. What's the error message we could capture? Table persons already exist. Does it make sense? Yes, since we have created a persons table already, you cannot execute this statements 2 times because you are not allowed to create tables with the same name in the same database. So we could capture this error message, and if you record the code, how could we capture this? If we open create table, yes, by running this MySQL error function with the current connection, we could capture it. So if there is error, we can capture this with this function, and it's concatenated with the error while creating a table. So now we can see this error message because we already have persons table. Okay, so in this first example, I showed you how to make a connection, and also how to execute SQL statements, and lastly, how to close the connection. And the next example, I will demonstrate how to run insert into statements.